episode of WoW Can Cook. My name is Tracy and I'm here with my friend Dr. Gloria, and today we are cooking Parisian vegetable white bean soup. Hi, Dr. G. How's it going today?
I'm doing great, honey. It's cool here, so I've got my scarf on, but I'm excited to share this recipe, Tracy, because so many people have said either they're not eating any animal products, they're vegetarian, or they don't want a lot of animal products and they don't want a lot of dairy. And most of the nice, creamy, thick soups have, which I love, and so do you, heavy cream, or they have half and half. And this one doesn't. And yet we still get, you'll see that you still get that nice, really thick, you know how a creamy potato cheese soup would be in consistency? That's how this is, without using any of those thickeners. So, and I have to laugh about something, because after I wrote it, I remembered where I had first I had the recipe, different than this, but basically the same. Because you know that in French, you have said this before, in French, when they do carrots, celery, and onion, it's mirepoix. Okay? So
Yeah.
the American mirepoix, that's the French. This is Parisian, the recipe. The Americans add garlic. So the American chefs call it mirepoix, but it's got the garlic. So that's the difference if people hear that. The French chefs never include garlic in the mirepoix. They add the garlic later. You know, just like a lot of Italian dishes, which I'm sure you know, the garlic is added later, or it's roasted and then added later, right? That's what the Parisians do. They don't put it in. So the American chefs are the ones that do the mirepoix, which is spelled I never get it right, Mirepoix. It's a strange spelling, but the pronunciation is mirepoix. So anyway, that's a little bit of tidbit of history here. So the first thing we're going to do is saute the mirepoix with olive oil. If you're using olive or avocado oil, it doesn't matter. I'd rather have avocado. What are you using? Avocado. Okay, so get it in your Dutch oven and get it nice and hot, just where it shimmers. Don't let it get, burnt, obviously. But remember, our rule of when to add your vegetables is when it starts shimmering. It's like waves on an ocean. It just literally shimmers. And then you add your mirepoix, which in this case is carrots, celery, onion, and garlic. So the only thing from the traditional Parisian recipe is that we're adding the garlic at the same time. So you just dump it all in after the oil is shimmering, okay?
Okay,
right.
So I chopped up finely the carrots, and how many carrots and how many celery?
Well, let's see. I've got to go back to my recipe. I had down 3 medium carrots, but what you've got there is fine. You're not cooking for an army. So what's that, about 2 carrots?
No, this is 3 carrots and 3 celery.
Okay, that's perfect. That's fine. And usually they are in the same ratio, by the way, in this type of a dish. Then we have medium leeks with the white and the pale green stalk chopped real fine. So do you have that chopped? Okay.
Yep, I have
leeks.
that, and I included the garlic here because we have 4 cloves of garlic.
Right.
In this.
That's perfect. Perfect. And then you've got, are you going to use chicken broth or vegetable broth in your recipe?
Chicken broth.
Yeah, that's what I use. Okay, perfect. And so what you're going to do now, check your oil, and because you should have it on medium high, and see if it's dancing already, if it's shimmering.
Okay, I guess it's moving.
As soon as it starts moving, it's shimmering. So then go ahead and just
add both of these at once, right?
Yep, add it all at once. You're going to add the carrots, the celery, you've got the garlic, and you've got the leeks in there too.
I added carrot, celery, leeks, and garlic.
Okay, so now you're going to just saute them on that medium high. Keep moving them until the veggies begin to soften. You don't want them cooked completely, but you want them softened. And you'll know, because you get that aroma, that aromatic flavor from all of the mirepoix, because it's really aromatic. It really is. And it's about
Should I cover it?
No, you're sauteing. You don't cover it. Good question. Okay, so in the meantime, open your can of beans. Did you drain them? Open it and drain them?
I already did that, but tell the audience what I was supposed to do. I already
Okay,
did.
so she got a can of white beans. What kind did you use? Navy or cannellini or?
Cannellini.
Okay, that's my favorite. So you get either navy or white cannellini, which I prefer the white cannellini, and you use 1 cup of the beans and set it aside. So put that aside. 1 cup you don't want to use right now. You're going to add it later. Okay,
Well,
you're going to blend.
Instructions, it says to blend 2 cups. It says 2 cans is 4 cups. Blend 2 cups. So I took a whole can and dumped it in the blender and blended it.
Okay, so you've done more than that. Mine says blend 1 cup of the beans and set the rest aside. So that's why I was confused. Okay, so it's 2 cans. You're right. And I wrote that incorrectly. So you're correct. So go ahead, and what the main thing is right now, what you're going to do is you're going to separate them, because you're going to add the beans to the mirepoix, and you're going to add the liquid later to be your thickener. And that's instead of using flour or cornstarch or arrowroot or heavy cream. And that's what gives it that wonderful heavy texture that like a potato soup would be. That's the texture we want. So what you're going to do now, you've already drained them. So now to the sauteed vegetables, you're going to add your chicken broth, but make sure that they're sauteed. Make sure that they're giving you an aroma right now and that they're getting soft. So you'll have to check those. This is why this is so simple, because you do that. It's the prep work that probably takes a little longer.
That looks good. So do I have the broth next?
Well, do me a favor and take a fork and just poke like the celery or a carrot and see if it's getting soft. You don't want it to still be as hard as when they're raw. They have to start softening. Otherwise, it's going to take too long to cook.
No, it's still hard.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying, is you've got to have it on medium high. So what we're going to do once those start getting soft, not cooked, but just starting to get soft, where the fork goes in somewhat easy, then you're going to add the chicken broth, the whole beans that you took out of the can, not the broth that you already ground, but the whole beans. Then you add all of your seasonings, your spices. So you've got, let's see, how much chicken broth do we have in here?
6 cups.
Okay, so you're going to make a nice pot of soup there. And remember, everyone, if you're wanting to make less, just cut the recipe in half. Don't sit and fool around with it and say, oh, this is going to be too much. I do the whole recipe the way I wrote it because I freeze some, because I don't always have time to cook. But you don't have to. So you've got, see if the vegetables are getting close by. If not, you might want to put the fire a little higher.
So while we wait, I'm going to tell the audience a little trick I do. So I buy bone broth all the time. Okay, chicken bone broth. But I never use it all well, rarely do I use it all at once. So I date it
at
the top here so I know how long it's been sitting in the fridge.
Yeah, I started doing that, and I'm glad you are, because we kept losing things. We forget things, right, in the back of the refrigerator, and then we didn't know when we opened it. That's great. We do that with all our cans, everything, our avocado oil, everything that we buy like that, we use a marker and mark it. And then when we get new things, we put the new things in the back and always bring the stock forward in the refrigerator or in the pantry so they don't get lost, because I've lost things and then they're really expired. So that's a good idea. Go ahead. And
his girlfriend moved out a couple weeks ago. Woo!
Right.
And I went through the pantry and I cleaned everything because now I have more room. So now I can see everything. It's just delightful.
Now you can organize the way Tracy wants it organized. Right. How are they doing? Are they starting to get a little soft?
Yes, they're getting softer.
Okay. So you can put the fork in fairly easy rather than just a raw carrot?
Yeah.
Okay. Go ahead and add your chicken broth. Always remember to shake your cartons, because there is something that settles in all of the broths, vegetable broths too. So I always put it one time I thought the top was on tight and it wasn't. I had it all over my kitchen. So I do it over the sink. I do it, I tighten it and then I do it over the sink. So I always shake them. Every time that you pour, shake it because it will settle, and you lose a lot of the good bits of the broth if you don't shake it. So now you're adding the chicken broth.
Yep.
Okay.
This
Add the
happened to
whole
have
beans.
exactly 2 cups, so now I'll shake this one and add the whole thing.
Okay.
And this is bone broth. I always buy
Okay.
bone broth. So adding 6 cups to make the soup. Look at how nice and brown. You can see it's caramelizing the...
Okay. Is it starting to bubble a little bit? You want a low roaring boil.
Well, I just added the broth a second ago.
No, I know, but when it gets to a low roaring boil, then start adding the whole beans and all the spices. The thyme, the oregano, cumin, turmeric,
so
and
why
pepper.
don't you tell the listeners what this spice blend is made of?
She put together the thyme, the oregano, the cumin, the turmeric, and black pepper, right?
How much of each did I put in this little jar?
How much of each did you put in it? Okay, 1 teaspoon of every one of them, except the black pepper is a half a teaspoon or to taste. I put in 1.5 teaspoons of black pepper because I love it. And I can't have other spicy food, so that gives it that zing, like you would have a chili, a bowl of chili that has that little zing to it. But everything else is in equal proportions in this recipe. The thyme, the rosemary, the cumin, and the turmeric are all 1 teaspoon. Okay? Because you're making the whole recipe. So for those of you making the half recipe, just cut everything in half. It's that simple. You don't have to start doing math. God forbid. We have enough to do. So if it's starting to get a little bit warm, if it's starting to let off a little steam, or you can see that it's nice and hot.
The edges of the pot are starting to like get a couple little small bubbles in it.
Okay, normally I would want my whole thing to be a little bubbles, but you can cook it a little longer. That's all it means, Tracy.
So instead of bok choy, I went out to the garden and picked Swiss chard. It is going wild in my garden. Like we had it planted in a row, but it must be off-shooting and it's just popping up all over.
Oh, I love it. I think I told you, I used to make, when I had my farm, I used to chop it up in little strips, like spaghetti, and then cut it in small strips and make my veggie patties with it. It's delicious. I'll have to get you that recipe. We'll have to do it on a show. But I love chard. I always had it. And even in North Idaho, I had it up until about this time of year. You're in California, so you can grow it longer. But I would cover it with plastic. I had little teepees, and I would cover it with plastic at night. And all of my plants like that were in tires. Have you ever done a tire garden?
No.
Oh, it's amazing. Well, we can talk about that for a minute for our listeners. I had 40 acres, so it wasn't that I was limited in space, but because I was almost at the Canadian border, we had a very short growing season. So the handyman that helped me on the farm said, "Let's do a tire garden." And I looked at him like, his elevator wasn't going to the top floor, right? and he said, the guys downtown at the tire shop will do anything. They'll practically pay you to take their tires because they don't want to stick them in the landfill. So he went down and got all the tires that he could that were about the same size. Then he got tractor tires that were huge. And we had to get 3 guys to help him. And they formed tire gardens that were waist high because I was still in a wheelchair when we did all this, when I first did my farm. And so I had to have everything at waist height to easily pick and, take weeds out or whatever. And so he filled them all with dirt. We got 2 dump trucks full of dirt, really healthy, good black soil. We filled them all. And do you know that I was the only one in the entire valley that were all farms that could grow all the way through the winter, except by about, depending on the frost, until about the 1st of March. Can you believe it? I mean, everybody else by Halloween, there was no more crop because it would freeze.
Interesting.
And so think about it. The tires are not toxic to the food because you've got them in good soil, right? And they're pretty high. So they're not toxic to the food, but you're keeping them from going in the landfill, and they keep in all the heat. So in the tire garden, besides what I had, in the ground, like raspberries and blueberries and all that, what my herbs weren't in tires, only my vegetables. And we built a teepee because I didn't have the energy at the time to have a whole greenhouse built. I did later. So he put just literally cedar boards, formed a teepee, put plastic that we rolled up on each side, and at night we'd let it down. And being in the tire garden, we had vegetables all but about probably 1.5, 2 months a year is the only time we didn't.
Wow.
So when people don't have a lot of growing season, the tire garden is great. And you're also helping our Mother Earth by not sticking stuff in the landfill.
Okay, we're ready
and
to
they're
go.
free, ready to go. Okay, so now she's putting in the whole beans. She ground in the blender or food processor part of the beans that she took out of the can, but now she's doing the whole beans and adding all those herbs that she put together in the blend: the thyme, oregano, cumin, turmeric, and pepper. You like a lot of pepper. Put some extra to suit your taste.
I can't because I'm sending a bunch of this over to my mother-in-law who doesn't like spicy food.
Oh, okay. So you can't do that. Okay, so then you're going to bring it to a low boil, a low simmer, Tracy. You want it to be bubbling, but very low, not splattering all over. And it takes about 15 minutes to cook. Basically, the beans are already cooked. So the only thing you're cooking is the mirepoix, the celery especially, and the carrots. And you want the herbs to be able to infuse all of their flavor into the soup. So that's why you cook it 15 minutes. Then after the 15 minutes, you add the blended bean mixture. There's your thickener. So for all of you watching the show, you don't have to use cream. Now, I have to admit, I cheat. Once in a while, I feel like, oh, I just want some heavy cream in there. And I'll put a splash of heavy cream, but you don't have to. You're going to add the blended bean mixture and the green that you're using. Tracy chose to use the wonderful chard out of her garden, or you can use bok choy. I bought bok choy because I don't have a garden right now. So that's really all we have to do. And then you add any salt and pepper to taste. And that's it. You can top it with a little Parmesan cheese, which is what I do. Or you can, a lot of people like a little dab of plain yogurt or sour cream. But that's how simple it is, because your beans become your thickener. And it gives
smart.
a really nice, yeah. And I had to experiment because for a long time after my illness, I couldn't do any dairy, not even goat, which is what I eventually could do. But I couldn't do any dairy. And so I just got tired of almond milk and, coconut milk. And so this was a great way to thicken it. And anytime you have a creamy soup and you don't want to put cream, use the beans. Just grind them all up and throw them in.
Well, what's the butter for?
The butter is when you put it in at the end, right before you serve it, you put in some butter, because you want the butter to be in the flavor of the bowl. But remember that you can add any greens. You can put some crispy chopped bacon on top, or turkey bacon. You can use let's see what other. Well, I like it while it's warm to grate some Parmesan on top. So you're going to give that to your mother-in-law. You gonna save any for hubby?
Oh yeah, I just know it's gonna make so much. So
yeah, it is. But you always have some nice Parmesan, and that would be great on top when you serve it. When I serve it, I usually put a little grated Parmesan on the bottom of the bowl, then the hot soup, and then some more Parmesan on top. That really gives it that, when you put your spoon into it, it blends it throughout the bowl. So it's really cool. It's an easy soup, and it's easy to freeze. And if you're gonna feed a whole crowd with some nice, crusty gluten-free bread, or I use a lot of almond crackers because they don't have the carbs and the sugar. So I use almond crackers instead of that. And I also sometimes will put them in my little food processor, and I'll sprinkle some almond crackers on top of the soup. I mean, there's so many things you can do with it.
That's a good idea.
Yeah. Have you tried the Simple Mills almond crackers that I buy?
I don't know.
By Simple Mills?
I don't know what brand.
They come, you know what brand that is? Simple Mills. They have the rosemary and sea salt, and they have just sea salt. and they're all made with almond flour. It's delicious. They're delicious. No sugar, none of that. So let's see how your soup is doing.
Well, I looked at the clock. It's only been 3 minutes, and you just said it needs 15.
Yeah, it needs about 15 in order to be completely finished. And then you put in you can put in the chard at that point. Okay, you can put the butter. I'm going to be honest. This is truth or consequences here. I put some in the soup when it's almost ready, when I add the greens, and I also put some in my bowl because I love the richness that the butter adds. So you do it the way you would like it. You can add a big dollop now, and you can add a dollop in your bowl. That's up to you.
Okay, now I'm going to add some butter. And give it another stir. And we'll be back to check this baby out in 10 minutes. Okay, you guys, now we get to try the soup. Okay. Oh, and I need to get some Parmesan, right?
I know you're going to want Parmesan on it, like I do. Changes the whole flavor of the soup. Did it get nice and thick, Tracy?
This thing, because you said to save it.
Yes. And we'll use that in another soup recipe. What Tracy's talking about is the rind. When you buy a chunk of Parmesan, it has the rind, and you can even stick it in the freezer, Tracy, the rind. And then later on, you grate it and you put it into some soups, and it changes the whole flavor. So if you're worried about it getting moldy, just freeze it.
Okay.
Yeah, it's best to freeze it so it doesn't get moldy.
Okay, I'll do that.
Did the soup get nice and thick with the beans that are already ground?
Thick enough.
Blended?
I don't want it like a,
Do it.
I don't like soup super thick. I have to have it edible. Okay, the big reveal.
Come on. If it passes your test, we're okay.
That's good. I like the the chard.
Yes. Chard, I would say that my two favorites for that would be the chard or the bok choy, because they have their own distinctive flavor. So how do you like the beans with the beans blended as the thickener?
I think that was
put in the beans
idea. That was really clever of you.
Thank you. I worked hard to figure out what can I do without milk or cream or half and half or something. So is it good with it?
Yeah.
You like the consistency of it?
I would have never thought to do that.
And I know. And I have another recipe that I use chickpeas and do the same thing, and it's amazing. We all get stuck in, you just use beans out of the can, or you soak them and you cook them, and we don't think of other things we can do with the same vegetable or legume or whatever it is that we have. So I'm trying to find some different ways of accomplishing some really nice taste without adding a bunch of cream or dairy, so that we can stay away from as much of that as we can. It forms mucus and phlegm in our body. So I love whole cream like you do. You get yours from the farmer's market, and I get some wonderful cream here, not as good as yours, but I don't want it all the time. I just want a tablespoon in my coffee, and my coffee's like 12 ounces. So it's not a lot, but I don't want a lot of it in my soups. It's too rich, hard on the liver and hard on the body in general. So how is it? Good?
No, it's a pass. I really do like it. It's definitely really good. Okay. Good flavor, good texture, and I really like it. It tastes great. So good. Bon appetit, Dr. Gloria. Thank you so much for teaching us how to make Parisian.
You're welcome. Thanks for being a good sport. Bye-bye.
Okay, everyone, have a beautiful day. We'll see you next time. Bye for now.
Thank you. Bye-bye. Bye-bye.